Order here. Good afternoon, everybody. Peter Lindstrom, Chair of the Environment Committee. First of all, welcome to the new committee members, and Wendy as well. But welcome to the new council members, to the Environment Committee. This is a great committee to be a part of. Order here. And good afternoon, everybody. Sometimes we come in surround sound. That's really exciting.
Video, or turn off the volume, one or the other.
Wow.
I'll tell you, this is now going into my second term, so I've been here 4 years, and I am learning something new every single committee meeting. And so with that being said, I definitely encourage lots of questions, because if you don't know the answer, Commissioner Wolf, Councilmember Wolf probably knows the answer, but I know I probably don't. So I definitely encourage that wide open discussion and conversation and engagement. So with that, we will get started on our short agenda, but an important agenda, and that is we have to approve the minutes. So without objection, the agenda is approved, but we do have minutes from February 28th, 2023. Is there a motion to
I will
approve?
move approval since I'm the only one who was here.
Indeed.
Other than you.
think I was at that one, so I don't know if I can second that, but if can I ask for a second?
Second.
Fantastic. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Carries. And that takes us to our one and only non-consent business agenda item, which is 2023-78. This is wastewater treatment plant for the Metropolitan water systems renewal and improvements, Phase 1 distribution system renewal project, rejection of a bid. Tim, welcome back to the committee.
Thank you.
Well, good afternoon. My name is, first off, good afternoon, Mr. Chair and committee members, and thank you for the opportunity to present this business item. My name is Tim Amstutz, and I'm an assistant manager in plant engineering, one of the groups in treatment services. And I'll be presenting business item 2023-78 called MWWTP, Water Systems Renewal and Improvements, Phase 1, Distribution System Renewal Project, Rejecting of Bid. I wanted to mention before I go to the next slide a mistake I made on the business item related to the policy and legal reference. Presently, the business item says Policy 3-3 Expenditures. The reference should say FM 14-2 Expenditures for the procurement of goods, services, and real estate policy. So I apologize for the mistake. Let's see if this works. Oh, it does. I'd like to spend a little time discussing the project scope. At the Metro plant, we have 3 main water systems, one of which is called service water. The system provides water for different uses or services around the plant, such as seal water for pumps and water for cleaning of tanks. The system consists of about 21,000 linear feet of 4 to 16-inch pipe and 39,000 linear feet of smaller diameter pipe located both in our tunnel system and buried in the ground outside. The piping is 40 to 50 years old and at the end of its service life. There is a need to replace the service water piping with a new water piping network. We contracted with an engineering firm, H.R. Green, to design the project, and we worked with them, together with them, to develop the contract documents for bidding. We advertised for bid on November 9th, 2022. The disadvantaged business enterprise DBE goal was 10%. One bid was received on February 8th, 2023 from Shank Constructors Incorporated in the amount of $41,791,700. This business item proposes to reject the bid and re-advertise the project because the bid was $18.9 million higher than the engineer's estimate. The proposed action asked for today is that the Metropolitan Council authorize its regional administrator to reject the bid for construction of MWWTP Water Systems Renewal and Improvements Phase 1, Distribution System Renewal, project number 808963, contract 22P076. Didn't work. Okay. This concludes my presentation, Mr. Chair and committee members, and I am happy to entertain any questions you may have.
Any questions? Yeah, Councilmember.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. A couple of questions I have. I think you told me the timing was that the contract documents were produced in 2022, out for bid. Has there been an analysis as to why there's so much overbid? I mean, I understand contracting, labor, materials, time, all of that. And so what's the analysis of why they're overbid by $18 million? That is such a huge difference from the estimator? That is the estimator wrong? Or, I mean, could be, or just have you done that analysis? Because what's gonna happen if you put it out for bid again and people are gonna come back overbid again? So are you missing something, or are the contractors missing something? So this doesn't happen kind of again. So has there been that analysis?
Mr. Chair and committee members, yes, we have looked at the bid prices, obviously from the contractor, and compared it to the engineer's estimate. And basically, first off, there were 81 bid items that we had. The majority of them were unit price bid items. The ones that, first off, there were two bid items that were titled all other work and demolition and removal, and those had the biggest differences between the engineer's estimate and the contractor. So we're going to try to see if we could try to tighten up the language on each one of those and see if we could reduce the cost differential on those. We've also looked at other bid items. There are, and we've grouped them by material cost, so for example, there was a bid item for copper piping, and there was a fairly big difference there. So that could be material price issue. There was another related to coating, painting of piping, and there was a big difference there. So that's material related. There was also another one for hangers, so we have to support this pipe, and there's a lot of metal. Those were also had a big difference. On the other hand, there was we're going to be installing a lot of ductile iron pipe, and our engineer's estimate was actually was actually more than what they came in. So it's a very complicated analysis. It's probably a combination of certain bid items, material costs. We're still trying to determine all that.
I just figured as a follow-up, materials prices going up with inflation, et cetera, it's just gonna keep getting more expensive. And then the all other work, had it been itemized, or did you itemize the all other work, or did the contractor? And were there some surprises that you were like, oh, we didn't consider that were reasonable?
Committee, I'm chairman of this committee. We have not had an opportunity. Obviously, we can't interview the contractor, so we don't know what their rationale was for that.
It was just one bucket.
Yeah, just one. So we don't know that answer.
Okay.
Mr. Jacoby.
Chair Lindstrom, council members, my name is Jody Jacoby, and I'm the director of the procurement department. And you ask a very good question, and from time to time, we do see when bids come in, if they're lump sum, that it's hard to really do an analysis on what the engineer's estimate was, and when the contractor's price comes in, to do what we call a cost analysis, to look at the breakdown by the quantities, by the labor, by the unit prices, to determine what did we miss. And in this case, there were 77 different line items, as Tim mentioned, depending on if it's a conveyance pipe, pressure gauge mounting, to different types of iron pipe by sizing. And the only, there were a few discrepancies, and on one line that there was all other work, there was a awareness that there could be some more identification of that work to better understand from the contractor's perspective what we were looking for, and also from environmental services to be much more specific, because there was a huge gap in that area. But in this instance, 81 different line items, but there's always an area that we can do better on it. And with the price coming in so much higher than the engineer's estimate, just like a bid when it comes to you for approval, if it's over $10 million to execute a contract, the same with a rejection of the contract.
Thank you.
And if I could follow up on that, obviously, if we send out an RFP, we're thinking there's more than one potential responder. How will we be addressing that? You think by tightening it up a little bit, that will generate some more interest, or how do we hope to get 2, 3, 4 responses instead of one?
Address that one.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, committee members, that's another really good point of information. And so it was a surprise to all of us first that we only received one bid on this. At the pre-bid meeting that we facilitate with every project, that's a coordinated effort between procurement, the Office of Equity and Equal Opportunity, since there was a disadvantaged goal on it, and of course our subject matter expert, the project manager. And at the pre-bid meeting, we had 14 different people attending. We had a number of plan holders. There were 8 addenda issued throughout the project with a number of questions. And so it was, you really don't know until bid day how many bids you'll receive. However, we also recognize, and we had a conversation just this afternoon, that we're going to do an informational meeting about the project in between to engage more contractors, and definitely some new contractors that have not participated in council project, and some contractors who have participated. So we are going to, in addition to looking at the specifications and the bid form, to really take a proactive approach with engagement before going back out to the market.
Thank you, Councilmember Wolf.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Is there any opportunity to break this into smaller contracts to get more bidders?
Mr. Chair and committee members, we're thinking about that. This project is a big project, and to break it up has its own challenges. So, we've thought about it. We're still trying to figure out what the best route is, so I don't have an answer right now for that.
Maybe demolition could be one approach, or one RFP.
Yeah, well, some ideas are you break it into phases, you break it into sections, different areas of the plant. There's challenges of each one. This really is. And then the other problem is if you have contractors working side by side, there's a challenge with that too. So there's a lot of challenges, and so we're trying to brainstorm ideas of how to move forward.
Councilmember.
Yeah. Do you have a pre-identification process where before you put a bid out, you do a pre-identification of potential bidders to try to make sure that you're reaching out and in a maximum effective way?
Chair Lindstrom, Councilmember Carter, we did not for this project have contractors pre-qualified. ES does do a pre-qualification list every year for certain types of work. However, it's my understanding that for this specific project, there weren't pre-qualified vendors.
Good questions. Other questions? Thoughts, comments? Councilmember Wolf?
I would move the staff recommendation.
Motion has been made. Second. Second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Carries.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. You are not Lisa Thompson.
I am not.
You are Sam Paskey, but you are the general manager for the day. And you have you have an update or two.
I do. If you would like to hear a little bit about the committee and the work of the division, I'm ready to share a bit of that. I can see our audience is interested as well. What's he going to say? Just let me ask first. I'm Sam Paskey, Assistant General Manager for Planning in the Environmental Services Division of the Met Council, and this committee and our division interact quite a lot. I'm just going to ask if any of you have yet seen this. You may not have yet, but you will at some point. It's
To read it to us.
We can't see it from here.
It's an environmental services overview document that was prepared as part of like a briefing package. So I don't know when those will make it to your hands, but I'm going to go from this. So if you had it at any point or you have it in the future, you'll have these materials. Okay. So just to this isn't just stuff you'll hear once. You'll hear it more and more as you go. So our mission and vision is clean water for future generations. Our scope, of course, is the 7-county metro area as a whole, and then when we talk about the wastewater system, a smaller footprint that we call the Metropolitan service area. We partner, we plan, and we provide services to protect our region's water, and our work protects the public health and the environment while supporting economical regional growth. Going back decades to the formation of the Met Council, and even before that to the formation of regional wastewater service. We, in this division, are responsible for the regional wastewater collection and treatment system, which has 9 wastewater treatment plants, which we are now thinking of as water resource recovery facilities. We recover more than water from the wastewater that comes to our facilities. We recover energy, we recover some nutrients like fertilizer for farmland, and so on. We treat around 250 million gallons of wastewater every day and reclaim that from 111 communities. We also provide integrated planning. So integrated planning means planning around water, but it touches almost everything we do, from climate to growth of the region. Integrated planning around water supply planning. We are not a water supplier at the Met Council, but we have a role regionally helping the local communities that are water suppliers sustain that service together for the efficient economical growth of the region. We have a role in water resources planning as well, where we work closely with communities, watershed districts, and related watershed organizations. There's several different names for them, but we have a metro structure for that around water quality and surface water management. Flooding is part of that. And I'll touch base on that in a bit because it in fact impacts our business here as well. We work with hundreds of industries on discharges to the wastewater system, where we are a partner in the economy of the region in that sense, and we monitor the water quality of rivers, lakes, and streams to support the region's livability and natural environment. An emerging area for us is some of our research that has taken a new turn since the pandemic, which I'll touch on in a second. Just quickly running through a little more detail around that expansive role focused on water, but certainly impacting so many areas, is our wastewater conveyance and treatment system, which this committee directs, as we just discussed, quite a bit of funding and supports the infrastructure and the staff and the contractors and so many people involved in upholding that critical function for our region. We have 60 lift stations around the region which pump wastewater to 11 different plants. We have an extensive flow metering system that you'll hear about probably at some point, where we can measure where the flow of wastewater is coming from. And we use that to manage the financial model that supports the system, where communities pay for the amount of wastewater service that they use. And that helps us with a program by which we manage inflow and infiltration, which is another topic that comes up here frequently. We build pipes that are designed to take wastewater flow from communities and serve growth far into the future. It's easier to build and more cost-effective to build the pipe once rather than build a small one, and then when we grow, we tear that out and build a bigger one, and so on. So we'll build the pipe that we predict will be the right size for that future ultimate growth number. As pipes age, though, they can start to take water in from the groundwater around them or surface flows. And that inflow and infiltration of water robs us of the capacity that we had intended for growth to support communities. And so we work with local partners, the communities, and now even private homeowners to tighten up the system to keep that water from coming into the system so that we protect that capacity for what it was intended for. It's a very good proactive approach that's cost effective, and the flow meters are a big part of that. We are focused quite a bit on the rehabilitation and renewal of our infrastructure. There's a number out there about what our system costs. It's in the many billions of dollars. It might even be into double digits by now, given what we just heard before and inflation. And that's not even accurate, because that was what it cost to build when we were putting pipes through farmland. And now it's not farmland anymore. It's urbanized, it's built. So in a sense, you could say our system doesn't have a replacement cost. It literally couldn't be reconstructed the way it was. So we put a lot into maintaining our facilities and keeping the condition at an acceptable level so we can continue to provide service. We have a role, as I mentioned earlier, in water supply planning and water resources management. We work with a group called the Metropolitan Area Water Supply Advisory Committee. Wendy, tell me if I get it right or wrong. And with a technical advisory committee that supports that helps. It's actually really interesting. That group was created by the legislature to handle the complex water supply issues that come in front of communities and groups of communities in the region. One issue you might think of is PFAS in the East Metro, or groundwater limitations, which also Northeast Metro, but also in other areas of the region, and how state agencies might have complementary but different roles in these questions, like the Department of Natural Resources is protecting the aquifer and the interaction between the surface waters, which we protect and have living fish and things like that. If too much groundwater withdrawal happens, that can impact surface waters, and the DNR's job is to manage that. Health Department their job is to manage that the water coming out of these aquifers or rivers is safe to drink. Whose job is it to manage the fact that we're sustainably using these resources in a safe and economical way? In other words, bringing everybody together so that their focus area can add up to the best approach for everybody. That's actually our job. It's no one group's job, but the Met Council's job So that group I mentioned earlier has state agencies, regional water suppliers, of which there are two, St. Paul Regional Water Services and Minneapolis, both run regionalized systems. And then there's the local water suppliers. And they come together in that group to work together on how to share this resource in a way that benefits the growth of the region. It's not funded, though. That work is not funded in a way that was provided when it was created, or at least not sustainably. So we use clean water funds from the legacy amendment that are allocated through the legislature and supported by the governor. That funding source supports that work. And we have a water supply planning group here in the Environmental Services Division that works alongside our Water Resources Planning Group and our Wastewater Planning Group. And that's what we call integrated water planning. I'll just keep going here. And if there's questions, yeah, thank you.
I just wanted to make sure, it's a really, really big deal to cities that we are not trying to take over their water supply system and make it a regional system. That's something that will get people's hackles up instantly. If you come anywhere near saying that it might become a regional system, people will freak out. So we don't want it, they don't want us to do it, but be careful what you say, because that gets people worried.
Thank you for mentioning that. And that was a lesson learned for me from our last meeting a couple of weeks ago, that message needs to be delivered, and I'm glad you reinforced that lesson learned yet again for me. The wastewater system was regionalized for very specific reasons, and the region has benefited from that in several ways. That has given us a very economical approach to protecting the water resources of our region. That same set of reasons does not exist for water supply, and there is no intent for regionalizing the water supply of the region, as Wendy, or as Councilmember Wolf put it, my apologies. And there really isn't, it's hard to even imagine that there would be a situation where that would even be up for discussion. We are here to be a partner and help communities work together, and that's the best role for the Met Council. I'll just maybe, if there's anything you wanted me to pause on, we don't have to go into any detail today, because you're going to get a lot of this information over the next years, especially as on deck for the near future. You'll be hearing about our capital program and the projects within it. You will be hearing about our customer outreach and engagement, because we're starting our budgeting process, and it's a very collaborative approach where we want as much connection to the communities we serve and the public we serve through that process. So you'll be hearing about that. You'll also be, you're joining us at a very good time. The 10-year regional planning cycle has, in our eyes, a milestone at the year 2025. For the communities, it's slightly later. But we adopt our water resources policy plan and the related regional system plans and policy plans in that year. And so right now we're leading up to that by developing white papers and research papers and gathering information on what is important to the region. What do we need to focus on? What do we need to do? And that information will be coming to you over the next months and maybe even into a year on some of the major issues that we're thinking about. And we're working externally with a Water Resources Policy Plan Advisory Group to help us get that regional perspective on what's important to the communities and cities and our partners in the region. So that'll be, I think, enjoyable. And quite a lot of detail. I'm just so impressed with the folks in our division, the technical, and within the Met Council as a whole, the technical knowledge and depth of of what we're able to bring to the table or access through our partners is just unparalleled. So I know if you have an interest, we can meet it. Let me end with a couple things. One is one of the things that, interestingly, we've never done before and has gained some publicity in the newspaper and so on, has been our role during the pandemic supporting public health, which is why we existed in the first place as a wastewater treatment organization. Public health is why that all started, to protect human lives. We were able to add value in that area in another way by providing an assessment of the COVID viruses, of which there are many different variants, through the course of amounts of viruses going up and down and people getting sick more and then less through the course of the pandemic and even into now, by using wastewater samples to find the DNA from the virus in those samples and then somehow extrapolate what is the regional amount of virus that we're dealing with in our populations. And it was an emerging science. We were working with the Mayo Clinic, with the University of Minnesota, and their genomics and even supercomputer center, which blows my mind, how technical that is. And we established a bit of new information and new approaches that I think were very helpful to the way Minnesota managed that aspect of the pandemic. So we were happy to provide that extra value from something that we do every day. And that's really behind where we're coming from now as water resource recovery facilities, that bigger picture of how can we benefit the region with this essential service in terms of water sustainability overall, public health, and so on. Yes,
Add
Councilmember
one more
Wolf.
thing again.
Yeah.
During the pandemic, I don't know what the stats are now, but that was the most visited part of our website for quite some time.
Yep.
It gave new visibility to the Met Council for something that people weren't mad at us about.
Right. We need to find more of that.
Not that we hope that there's any more pandemics.
No,
but,
no.
Yeah, we did do some amazing work there.
Right. Yeah, absolutely amazing. Yeah, thanks for mentioning that. So at a more practical level, one of the things we're paying attention to right now, you might see come across your desks in maybe the next month or so, is, as Tim mentioned earlier, the Metro plant becomes an island from time to time instead of a peninsula, if you will. And right now there's a chance that could happen. When that does happen, we may need to have an emergency declaration which allows us to put the right measures in place quickly to protect that multi-billion-dollar asset. What happens is the river rises, and because wastewater treatment plants tend to be at the bottom of the hill and not the top, that's the case with our plant there. There's a levee around it which protects it, but there's a hole in the levee that we drive through to get there, and when the river goes over the level of the road, we have to close that. And there's limited ways to get to that plant. So we've put several protective measures in place, and there's some accommodations we have to make to keep providing the levels of service that you'll be in the loop on. We've managed that several times, more than several, I think, and we've got it fine-tuned, but we're always paying attention because we know it's a serious matter. I don't think the probability is over 50% at this point, but who really knows?
We're hoping for temperatures about 33 degrees, 34, 35 degrees, so slow melt. That's what we're aiming for. So far, so good. But if you get a 70-degree day, and that all could change.
Yeah.
Councilmember Wolf?
I was just gonna add that our plants are designed, if they need to pump water uphill to get out if the river is higher than the
Yep.
plant. And then they also, when the water gets really low, we oxygenate it before it goes in so that the fish in the river don't die, because when it's a drought, the river tends to lose its oxygen, and so we help keep fish alive.
It's an amazing operation when there is a flood. I mean, it's like with the pumping of the water, you can imagine there's 150 million gallons of water that's being treated every day. And so you gotta now pump with huge motors, very energy intensive, uphill into the Mississippi River. We have electricians, I think more than one,
They're on
staff.
24/7.
On staff, yeah, 24/7 during, sometimes weeks of the flood. So it's all hands on deck. We have this massive pipe coming into the Metro plant. It's so big, I forget exactly how big it is, but you could drive a car through it. And we build the road to get into the plant on top of this big pipe. So yeah, it's quite the operation, and we'll see if we need to do that or
pipes.
not. 2 pipes,
Double barrel.
yeah, double pipes, yeah. I'll just add on, we've talked about cities a little bit, and that's one of the biggest engagements that the council has with cities. We send out these 111 different cities big bills for treating their wastewater monthly or whatever it is. And so it's likely that you'll go to your various cities and then in the months ahead. And when you do that, you can say, hey, here's our relationship between environmental services and the city of fill in the blank. We get 250 million gallons of wastewater every single day from the far reaches of the 7-county metropolitan region, and we send you a bill to treat that. And having those good customer relations is really key. So on that point, we have a couple of customer, I forget what we call them, but like customer relationship engagement sessions coming up in, I want to say June, that our city representatives will be participating in, and you are very welcome to, one is virtual, to come virtually. We can get you the dates on that, and one is in person. Again, I think they're in June. And then, it's one thing to hear about the Metro plant or Seneca or Blue Lake or an Interceptor here at this table. It's a whole different thing to actually see it and smell it yourself. And so I know we will likely be doing tours, especially as the weather warms up, and really encourage you to take advantage of that and see all of the pipes that we were talking about, and how we do this firsthand. And I know I think 3 years ago, we even did a tour of the different capital improvement projects, the different construction projects that we were engaged in at that time. So that is valuable as well. Any questions that you folks have? Yeah, Councilmember.
So in another life, I spent a couple years working with the folks at the Metro plant as an environmental air, water, and it just is, an amazing work. I came up studying environmental engineering with Perry McCarty, the father of wastewater treatment, basically, and what they've put in place there, and the staff, and the technical know-how, and everything couldn't have worked. Technically, A+, staff A+, just really a great couple years of working with them down there. So I hope everybody takes a tour and it gets appreciated that.
Takes a tour of that, certainly, but also the water quality. Sam's had me out on the Mississippi
Yep.
River, where we are regularly every day or like on a regular basis out on the Mississippi River, the Minnesota River, the St. Croix River, a number of different streams and lakes and monitoring the water quality. I mean, that is like what you ask, what really makes this region great? And a lot of people will say clean water. Some people will take it, not take advantage of it, but take it for granted. But boy, if it goes wrong, you know about it ASAP, right? So our role is super critical in water quality monitoring as well. Councilmember Wolf.
I recommend taking at least 2 tours of the wastewater system. Get Metro, because it's huge and you've got to see it to kind of believe it. But go to one of the smaller plants. I have a personal preference for Empire, but you can choose your smaller plant. But when you go to the smaller plants, you can go in and you can follow the water as it goes through each stage. Metro is kind of too big to be able to do it in order. But going through one of the smaller ones and getting the everything in order really helps to organize your head into understanding how everything works.
Well, we got a lot of good times in front of us. Yeah, Councilmember.
Yeah, I had a question. I know lately there's been a lot of controversy around forever chemicals
Yeah.
in water, and I know this is, the issue's been around before, but it's become more publicized lately, and I just was interested in what approaches does the Metro Council take towards that when it deals with wastewater treatment?
Take a crack at it, that one?
Take a crack at this one. It is a present topic. Internally, we have a team set up to monitor and work on a strategy and evolve how we deal with it. The question is, there are so many unknowns. As a starting point, the wastewater process itself does not generate PFAS. It's a pass-through. It's coming from somewhere, which leads to the preferred strategy, which is to not treat it, but to prevent it from getting into the process in the first place. We are working with the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency, or the MPCA, on a statewide approach to better understand what are the sources, where do they show up, and we've been part of a leadership group that we're monitoring PFAS and related compounds as they're coming into our system. We're also working with some of the sources that generate those, and they would also characterize their operations as pass-through as well. Everyone does. Even water suppliers are now faced with this, so it is an integrated issue where water suppliers are even being hit with higher and higher requirements that may impact most, if not all, of the suppliers in our region may have to deal with this sooner than later. So we're trying to step back and, in the planning side, look at it systemically and how can we deal with that. Ultimately, if we can prevent these any of these emerging contaminants from getting into the system in the first place, that's the best approach to protecting public health.
Great question. Councilmember Cameron.
That it actually related directly to my question or comment, really, that I think one of the most exciting things, and why I'm excited to be on this committee, is really the power of wastewater screening tools that we have within our abilities. And the COVID-19 example is the perfect example of how it can be in terms of, disease screening. I'm sure that it might not rise to the level of a pandemic, but there might be other opportunities to engage with the Department of Health on monitoring disease outbreaks within the metro region. And then the other piece is tied into the PFAS, which is, being able to quickly identify pollutants entering the water system and how we're using those screening tools to be really reactive. I think it's incredible work. I've been reading about it, and, examples like the longtime mercury screening program in partnership with dental clinics. That's really exciting, and I think more partnerships like that are great opportunities. So I'm really excited to explore those, the potential and the work that the wastewater facilities are doing in those screening processes.
Yeah, that's super excited. I can tell you firsthand how excited or how grateful the Department of Health was to get the
Oh, yeah.
COVID information, because it can just tell you before folks hit the hospitals what the COVID numbers are looking like. It's amazing what wastewater can tell you. Who knew? Not me. Maybe these folks knew, but I didn't know. And what else can it tell us?
Right.
And the mercury is such a great story to tell. I mean, mercury in our wastewater was such a challenging issue 30 years ago. And this great partnership that we've had with the Minnesota Dental Association and dental clinics across the region to take the mercury out before it hits the wastewater, right? Like kind of what you were talking about with PFAS. Get it out before it even gets in the first place. And that's been a great success. So what else? Could that be a model for other types of things? Councilmember Wolf.
I want to give a shout out to our I&I program because when that started, it was originally going to be just a 5-year deal. Everybody was supposed to fix their cracks in the system and then it was going to go away. And I actually chaired the group that just, looked at what was supposed to be the long term. And when we talked about it, we realized it's just maintenance. And you're always going to have to do maintenance. That maintenance never stops. But it got everybody in the region to work together, look at their pipes and make sure everything was in good repair and have a plan to televise it all or whatever inspection manner you needed, both for us and for them, because we weren't keeping up on our inspections either, and we ramped that up dramatically. But it got everybody talking and working together on maintenance. Like I was on the Lakeville City Council, and there was an interceptor that went through Lakeville that the access structures were in a lake and they were underwater. And the council didn't realize that they were underwater. But when they started doing their I&I stuff, they went, holy cow, there's a whole lot of water coming in this pipe. Lakeville's got I&I. We said, no, your pipe is underwater. But if we hadn't had the I&I program, that could have gone on for a long time without ever getting fixed. But they dug out, we lowered the level of the lake and they dug out things that made the structures higher so they wouldn't end up underwater anymore. But that working together for the good of the whole system is kind of an energy that started because of the I&I program. At first they were a little skeptical, big bad Met Council coming and telling us what to do. But over time, everybody realized we all benefit if we work together to keep excess water out of the system, and it became a partnership.
Something that people can understand is we're charging these cities, well, like I said earlier, to treat this wastewater, but we don't want to charge them more to clean already clean water, right? We don't need to clean rainwater or groundwater that's getting into the system. So doing things like taking care of our own interceptor pipes, number one, and helping the cities address their I&I. And then Councilmember Wolf is chairing another committee to look at I&I on the private sector. Is there an update on that? I was going to ask you about that.
I'm actually going to be meeting with staff tomorrow morning about prep for our last meeting with the group. We've had 3. And it was actually really interesting at the last meeting because I kept asking them questions about how it should be structured, and somebody said, well, it's your money. Why don't you just tell us what you want us to do? It's like,
This is a grant
This is
program.
the third meeting, and you still don't believe that we want to partner with you and have you help design the program. But we're coming together, it's gonna be good, and we'll get it figured out.
That's great. No, really, we do want your input. Good. Other thoughts, questions? We'll have lots of time together to dive into these great questions. And with that, we are adjourned. Thank you, everybody.